Brown shirts during the 30s in Germany, the Tattletale Squad that turns in their neighbors. We're going to have MAGA Americans who are brainwashed, who are going to turn in names of neighbors who don't follow MAGA. We're going to have tattletales. And what this is saying right here is if a MAGA person tattletales on their neighbor, then they themselves will reap a similar punishment. They will be thrown into prison as well. Just a word to the wise. If you want to be a MAGA bounty hunter and go look for souls to turn in because they don't worship Trump, the Antichrist, God will make sure that you will reap what you sow. Also, he who kills with a sword will be killed themselves. That means if MAGA people want to join the lynch mobs that are probably going to be rising up in the future, because great evil is going to be unleashed, more demons are going to be unleashed on the surface of the earth, and there will be squads of people who go out and lynch those who are enemies of the state of Donald Trump, and they're going to kill. They'll drag people out of their houses and kill them. MAGA people will turn into hit squads and lynching squads. That's coming, folks. Jesus said it's going to come. He said many will betray one another, even in households. Fathers to their kids, kids to their parents, brother against brother. People are going to turn in one another. And if people participate in bloodshed, they themselves will be killed. God will make sure of it. So that then leaves us with the challenge. What do we do? The answer is right here, folks. Verse 10 ends with the remedy. It tells us, here is the patience and faith of the saints. In other words, by our patience, we possess our souls, which means we have to follow Jesus. We have to pick up our cross and walk on the Via Dolorosa just like he did. Be imprisoned or even maybe be martyrs. That's the path, folks. That's it. That's where we are. That's another sermon. We need to prepare for the possibility of being martyrs, and that's one of the realities that we face. And since the pre-tribulation rapture did not rescue us from this challenge, then that means that every one of you guys listening need to increase your faith to the point where you have it settled in your heart as Jesus had it settled in his. That's where we have to get, my friends. We have to get full of the book of Hebrews, chapter 10 and 11 and 12, talking about the hall of faith, the champions of faith, who by faith were able to look death in the face and not be fearful. And by faith, we're looking to a city, to a country, to an inheritance, to a city whose builder and maker is God. Folks, that's where we have to get. That's the type of faith that we have to build. Moving on, verse 11. And here's where we start talking about the second beast. Here it is, folks. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. So right here we see the second creature rising up. Where? He comes out of the earth. So make note of that. If you're taking notes, write that down. The second beast comes out of the earth. And it describes him. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. What does that mean? He looks tame, friendly. He looks harmless. But in truth, he speaks words of evil, lacking mercy, that are heartless, that are cold, because he doesn't care about people. He doesn't have mercy, which describes Elon Musk. If you're familiar with the way that he practices his businesses, he is in the habit of firing people by sending them a text message or an email and not giving them a friendly goodbye, not giving them a thank you, not showing appreciation for the contribution that people did while they were working for him. He fires and he says, don't let the door hit you. He doesn't care about people. He looks like a cool little nerd, but in truth, he's a heartless oligarch who only cares about himself. Verse 12, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. Make note, the second guy has the same authority as the first guy in his presence. That means that they're close to one another. Or in other words, they hang out with one another. And that's exactly what we see in the behavior of Elon. He hangs out with Trump. He's staying at Mar-a-Lago. He's in the Oval Office. He's always there giving press releases. And now he's in cabinet meetings, sitting in on top secret gatherings that require a security clearance. And even though he doesn't have one, he's still sitting in. Am I the only one that sees this as being odd? It makes no sense. The whole world is mystified by it. Because here we have the richest man on earth cozying up to Donald Trump, the Antichrist. They are fulfilling the prophecies perfectly. And this is what Jesus was talking about in Matthew 16 when he told the Pharisees, you guys are looking for your own sign, There's this one thing that you're looking for, which is, and Jesus didn't say what that sign they were looking for was, but we know what it was now. When we look back, they were waiting for Jesus to conquer the Romans. They were waiting for Jesus to call himself king of Israel, raise up an army, and fight the Romans. That's the sign they were looking for, which was never going to happen. While in the meantime, they were dismissing the signs that Jesus was performing with his own hands before all of them. When we look at Donald Trump and Elon, they're doing the same thing. Donald Trump's fulfilling Daniel 7 and 8 and 11. And now here we have Elon cozying up to the first beast. And it goes on. He exercises all the authority of the first beast, the first guy, in his presence, so they're together, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Translation: Elon is working in tandem with Trump, but he's pointing the people to Trump, and he's pointing the people to the government that Trump is building. The two of them are building a new system of government right now. They are destroying the old America. They're destroying the Constitution, trampling on the Bill of Rights. They're getting rid of the old, and they're raising up a new system. And then verse 13, look at this, folks. And he, the second beast, performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Now, in the past, the established church interpreted it as meaning the second beast guy, who we were told was the Pope, or some false prophet, some guy wearing a robe and following the Antichrist around. We were led to believe that he would point up to the sky on TV, or maybe there'd be a press conference and he would get in front of all the cameras and say, "Watch what I can do." And he'd point up to the sky and fire would somehow come out of the sky. And then he would say, "See, I am empowered by God. So therefore you need to listen to what I say, honor me and honor my sidekick, the leader of the world, Mr. Damien Thorne." That is the image that we were given. But that's not what it says right here. It says, and he performs great, meaning great, for the word great. In other words, MAGA, great, hint. The signs that he has have great because he works for MAGA. But these are tokens, identifiers. When we look at the word signs, it means token. It means an omen. It means a signature. It means an event that happens to let everyone else know that it is a signal or a hint or an exhibit to prove that it's real, to prove that the resume is true. So in other words, Elon Musk is not going to call fire from heaven and point to the sky and lightning bolts come down. So in other words, the fulfillment of this passage will happen not with the false prophet pointing to the sky and lightning coming down, but instead he will be able to do some things that cause fire to fall from the sky. And ladies and gentlemen, out of all the people on earth, out of all 8 billion people, how many of them have their own rocket company? How many? Only one. There's only one man in the whole world that has a rocket company. It's his company. He has rockets. And every now and then, when his rockets go into the sky, they have malfunctions and they explode in the sky, and then they come back down as fire in the sight of men. So what this verse is saying is that he has the ability to perform his rockets, send them up into the sky, but when the rockets explode and return to earth, it's going to be fire returning to earth. And if you can see that this is happening because of him, that means this is a sign to discern. It's a marker. It's an identifier. It is a witness that he's the guy. When we look at it this way, folks, it screams, look, there he is. He is the only one on earth that can do this. Verse 14, and he deceives those who dwell on earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived, and he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. That means Elon Musk is going to do something in the future. This has not happened yet. This is something that we should be discerning, because it might happen in a way that we're not expecting. It might happen in a way that perhaps doesn't match the preconceived idea that we have in our mind. But we have to be watching for this verse to be fulfilled. So this is still coming. Verse 16, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or foreheads, that no man might buy or sell except he who has the mark. Elon Musk has Neuralink. He has the technology where he wants to embed brain chips into everybody so that they can get online, which will make them able to participate in the new money system, the cryptocurrency. It's also going to work in tandem with AI technology. The Colossus AI deity that he already told us is going to be the new god of the future. It's going to be a god of AI. It's going to have directives. It's going to tell us what to do, etc. He's already told us that that's coming. And there are other billionaires who are working with him. What are the odds, folks? He's the only one on earth that can do that, have rockets explode. And then he's the only one on earth who has a new technology that he's working on, Neuralink. And then he's the only one on earth that also owns a new AI facility that he's building in Memphis, Tennessee. He is the only one that can do all of these things. He's coming up with a new digital currency. Elon Musk is the second beast. But then it gets worse. And right now, I want to shift to some information that I need you guys to get a hold of. And after you hear what I'm about to say in this disclosure about Elon Musk, I am hoping that a lot of you will be awakened. I am hoping that a lot of you will share this warning with everyone that you know, because it's more serious than we can imagine. Now, when we look at Elon Musk, if we look at his name, the name Elon is found in the Bible. It's in there, Elon, and that name means terebinth tree or oak tree. And you can do it yourself, folks. You can go to Blue Letter Bible, type in Elon, it'll bring up Elon, and then you can look at the root meaning, and it will say oak tree, terebinth tree, which is oak. So let's lay that on the table. If you're taking notes, write Elon equals oak tree. Now, the name Musk means aroma or scent, like smell, scent, S-C-E-N-T, scent, a smell. So the name Elon Musk means the aroma from the oak tree. Okay, so write that down. Now, when we look at the revealing of the second beast, Elon, it says that I saw a second beast rise from the earth. It describes Elon Musk rising out of the ground. This beast creature that's inside of him is evil. It's a very powerful principality. It is full of decadence, pandemonium, darkness, and hatred, and everything that's opposite of God. That's what powers this creature, because it comes from the bottomless pit. So this creature comes out of the ground in the form of Elon Musk, but isn't it interesting that in Revelation it says that it grows, in other words, it grows out of the ground. His name means terebinth tree or oak tree with an aroma. Okay, now folks, hold that thought. Now when we look at the first beast, it says it came out of the sea. Mar-a-Lago means from the sea to the lake. Donald Trump lives on a property that actually says that, from the sea. So Trump rises from the sea, he's the first guy. And then we have Elon rising from the earth as an oak tree, he's the second guy. Now watch this. If you have been paying attention to Elon when he releases a social media post, he will often put up a post that seems kind of funny or goofy or silly. And in his post, he will let everybody know that he is some kind of character. And he makes it sound funny to be associated maybe with a video game. Because in the past, he has said that he is level 4 of Diablo, the video game. He's one of the top players in the whole world of the game that is actually Satan. He's one of the top players. So we have that. And then we have him putting on the Baphomet suit. He's letting everybody know that the spirit of the Baphomet, the goat, is also inside of him, just like it's inside of Donald Trump. So the two of them also have the goat Baphomet spirit inside them. And you see this picture, the armor is red, and the Bible says that the dragon gave him his power. So we have this, where Elon Musk is not showing himself in an angel costume. He's not showing himself as some benevolent person or a superhero who does good or justice like Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. No, he picks a character that's the worst character you can think of. The dragon, the Baphomet, the transgender creature from below the earth. That's who he picked. And then, on top of that, he let everybody know that he changed his name. And he said it playfully. He said, "My name is Kekius Maximus." Now, Kekius Maximus sounds funny, but if we were to look at who Kek is, K-E-K, Kek was one of the elemental gods of ancient Egypt, 3,000 years BC. that was worshipped 5,000 years ago or 3,000 years BC. And if you did some research on Kek, the story goes that there were 4 elementals males and 4 elemental females, and one represented the underworld and darkness, one represented the other elements. But Kek represented darkness. He represented the underworld. He was the god of the underworld, of chaos, of destruction. The god Kek from ancient Egypt. He was the destroyer. Now, folks, make note. A few weeks ago, Elon Musk stated, every now and then, as I said, he states that he's a creature, and he does it funny. But he put out this tweet, and I have it on the screen right here. Look at it. See, this proves I'm a time-traveling vampire alien. Even though I'm 5,000 years old, I think I look much younger. So right here, it sounds funny. And all the nerds see it and they go, oh yeah, he's cool, yeah. But folks, let's dissect what he just said right here. He has been letting us know that he's Kek, and now he's saying he's a vampire alien. In other words, he's not human, and he's 5,000 years old. If we were to go back 5,000 years, the world would have been 1,000 years old. And here's where it gets very creepy that he's doing this, because this post right here is letting all of us know that he's the second beast and that he has a very powerful entity inside of him that's going to help to destroy the world and to bring the mark of the beast. Now, if we go back 5,000 years, we would get to the year 1,000. 1,000 years from the Garden of Eden, when God created Adam and Eve. By the way, I'm using the biblical model of the earth being 6,000 years, and we're about to enter the final day. So if we go back 5,000 years, the earth has been here for 1,000. Adam died when he was 930 years old, so he would have been dead now for 70 years at the marker of 1,000. But in the year 620, 620 years after Adam, approximately 620 to the year 700, around there, maybe 650. That is when the angels, the watchers, the 200 watchers, came to earth and took wives for themselves, the incursion of the angels, and then they had the Nephilim babies who were the giants in the land. You guys are aware of this. That occurred in the year 600 and something, approximately. After the angels showed up in the year 600 and something, now if you're taking notes, write this down, folks. Have you ever wondered how long that went on? How long the angels wandered the earth, those watchers? How long they were able to influence humans? Do you know how long they did it for, folks? They did it for almost 1,000 years, because the flood occurred at around 1650, give or take. So the angels showed up in around 600, and then the flood happened in 1600, which means for 1,000 years, those angels had the time to influence different kingdoms, civilizations, like in Egypt, for example, and they were able to convince humans that they came from the sky, that they were alien gods from the sky. In Egypt, we have the history that tells us this. We have the records of the gods that Egypt worshipped back then. This is where it gets interesting. Around the year 1000 in Egypt, the Watcher angels had already been influencing Egypt for over 300 years. And those Watcher angels convinced the people of Egypt that they were gods, and they came up with a narrative that they explained to everyone where creation came from. And one of the number one gods that was worshipped in Egypt in the year 1000 or 5,000 years ago at this time was the god Kek, K-E-K. So it's interesting, we have Elon Musk saying that he was around 5,000 years ago and he's an alien that is a vampire, which I'm going to touch in a second. That matches biblical history, and it matches what we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because Enoch talks about this. We have the history of it, and some of the other lost books talk about it. The Book of Giants, the Book of Jubilees, Jasher, Enoch. We have the history, as well as some of the Sumerian writings, some of the old cylinders where we find the history, and also the hieroglyphics. We have the images of these creatures that were in ancient Egypt that looked like gods, and they had abilities that were otherworldly. So the Watchers were deceiving the world at the year 1000, and also they had their Nephilim children who were wandering the world at that time. And those Nephilim children, the giants, by the year 1000, that means those giants would have already been ravishing the world for 300 years, approximately. They were ravishing the world, And Enoch also says that they defiled all of God's creation, and they sinned with animals and birds and reptiles and humans, meaning that they were messing with the DNA of God's creation. So they had 1,000 years to create chimeras, to create these creatures that were half human, half animal. And that's why when we look at mythology, we see these creatures that look like they're fake. They look like they're cartoons or something from the imagination. But these things, according to ancient writings of lost books, the fallen watchers and the Nephilim played around with God's creation. The monitor, the bull-headed creature with the body of a man, or the griffin, or the centaur, or all those creatures that we've seen, half lion, half bird, eagle's wings on a lion, the jackal's head on a human, the Anubis. So when we look at the year 1000, this gives validity to the timeline that Elon Musk is letting us know who he is. Now, the Nephilim who are wandering the earth, the Bible tells us that they became cannibals. They were eating humans, and they had a thirst for blood. They loved human blood. They loved to drink it, as well as animal blood. They've just loved blood. And that's where the lore, the folklore of the vampire came from. The undead creatures who drank blood. We actually have that in ancient biblical history. That's what the Nephilim did. So Kek, this creature who was a fallen angel, had his children who drank blood, and the fallen angels might have been doing it themselves. They might have also been drinking human blood. When we look at what Elon says, look at this again. This proves I'm a time-traveling vampire alien, even though I'm 5,000 years old. That puts him at the year 1000, drinking human blood as a spirit inside the Nephilim, or in the Watchers. Folks, this is very spooky when we think about it. This gives legitimacy that Elon Musk is powered by a creature from under the earth, and he's letting everybody know about it. That's pretty wild, right, folks? When we look at the words of Jesus in Matthew 16, when he hinted that the signs that happen around you need to be discerned instead of ignoring them and looking for your own sign, folks, we have signs happening right in front of us. When he put out this meme that he's a vampire alien 5,000 years old, that puts him right in line with these creatures way back then before the flood. It gives legitimacy that he's powered by an underworld creature. It's a sign, ladies and gentlemen. He's able to make fire come out of heaven, fall from heaven. He's able to come up with AI to give us the image of the beast. He's able to come up with the chip, the Neuralink, to give us the mark of the beast. He's able to accomplish all these things. And now, on top of that, he let us know that he is Kek, that he's a frog creature. That's the other thing he played with. When we look at Kek in ancient Egypt, Kek had the head of a frog back then. It matches. When we look at Revelation, it says he had the horns of a lamb but spoke like a dragon. In 2018, for a while, he was joking around saying he changed his identity to that of a sheep. He was joking around with it, but here it is. Look at this. He said that he was one unit, and he was a sheep, a lamb, in other words. So he's showing us he's the lamb, and then he's showing us that he's the dragon. He's showing us both of them. When we look at the name Elon, we can look it up in the Bible. It tells us that the word Elon means terebinth tree or oak tree. Terebinth trees were often chosen for pagan altars. Now, Baal was the storm and fertility god that was worshipped with rituals. It involved child sacrifice, Asherah poles, and in the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 13, it says they sacrificed upon the tops of mountains and burned incense upon the trees, under oaks. Now, why did they do this? It is because when the Watchers came down to earth, they taught sorcery. They taught how to conduct magic spells and seances and speak to the dead. They're the ones that gave the forbidden knowledge to mankind, which included Baal worship, and they used trees to do it. Terebinth trees. Now, the Bible is very clear about this practice. God commanded the Israelites to cut down the groves and destroy the altars under the trees because they always sought out areas that were outside the city, that was a high place. Perhaps it was elevated, and they would create a clearing. They'd build an altar, and they would sacrifice to Baal. The terebinth tree was a part of this. It was key to Baal worship. It was a sacred space. It was a symbol of demonic power. And the reason they did it is because they would get results. Demons would show up and possess them. They would be able to channel spirits. Basically, a portal was created to the underworld. So Baal worship is what Satan raised up and taught the children of Israel. So when we look at Elon's name, his name means terebinth tree. Now, is that a coincidence? What do we have so far? We have that Revelation 13 tells us that the second beast rises out of the earth, or like an oak tree, a terebinth tree, it grows out of the earth, and then it became a powerful force at the end of time. Elon's name means exactly that. Is that a coincidence? No, it's not. It gets even more interesting. His last name is Musk. Musk means odor or aroma or smell. And when the Baal worshippers would conduct their invocations to Satan, they would include incense as a type of aroma to generate the attraction to the spirits. So incense and aromatic offerings were used in Baal worship that were performed under the Elon tree. Now what do we have? We have that when they conducted their Baal worship, they had Elon trees, and then they also had musk, incense, aromatic incense to attract the spirits. So Elon Musk, when we look at his name, and now that we have this backstory, and then when we associate it with Revelation 13, the second beast rising from the earth, Elon Musk means Baal worship. That represents Baal pagan worship. Folks, this is not a coincidence. This is not just a lucky thing that happened. These are signs that God has provided for us. Just like he provided the name of Trump as a little horn, that's a sign that we must discern. It tells us he would be boisterous and narcissistic and full of himself. That is a discerning sign that we must attach to him because they match. And then we have his buddy who he basically married. His best friend, his twin, is always there with him, whose name actually means the aroma of the oak tree from the ground, which means Baal worship. So Elon Musk's name means Baal worship. It's pagan, folks. And then when we couple that with the way he behaves and the memes that he puts out and the jokes that he shares, that he's Kek, he's an alien that's 5,000 years old, which puts him right at the time when the 200 watchers made their incursion to the earth. This is not a coincidence. Now, the Bible says that he would look like a lamb, have two horns of a lamb, but he would speak like a dragon. So he shows himself as a sheep, but at the same time, he also shows us who his God is. He dressed up in red armor with an upside-down cross, a blasphemous cross. His wardrobe revealed to us that he is a son of Baal, a son of the Baphomet, with the very powerful spirit entity who calls himself Kek, that was around in ancient Egypt 5,000 years ago, with a frog face. This is biblical, folks. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 30 and 31, it says, and this is God talking, "And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke." Fire from heaven and pillars of smoke. By the way, look at this image, folks. Pillars of smoke. His rocket ship. It goes on, "The sun shall be turned into darkness, the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come." This clearly tells us that God is performing the signs. Of course, the sun hasn't turned dark yet. It hasn't been turned to darkness, and the moon hasn't been turned into blood yet, although we have had blood moons. But those signs are still coming. But this is just telling us that God is the one who shows us the signs. As remnant believers, we must get a hold of this concept that God is the one behind the end time signs, and he's not only allowing them, but he's sending them as part of his final warnings to this world. And that is what Jesus was telling the Pharisees. You guys are looking for your own signs, you're seeking after it, while at the same time you're ignoring the signs of the times happening right in front of you. You cannot discern them. And at the time, he was speaking about himself, that he was performing the signs with his own hands. He was healing the sick, raising the dead, healing blind eyes, opening deaf ears. Jesus was providing those signs. So in other words, in the first advent, Jesus, Son of Man, God, was providing the signs for the benefit of the people. Fast forward to today, he's doing the same thing. He's providing the signs, and he's using Donald Trump and Elon Musk and current events to show that these signs are real. They're here in front of us, folks. But how many people can see them? Not many. That is what is so astounding about this situation. The evangelical church can't see it. Pastors can't see it. Spiritual leaders cannot see it. And a large portion of the body of Christ cannot see it. So what are you going to do, my friend? Can you see it? Do you have the discernment to see these things that God is providing for us? And that's why I have been saying over and over, and Allison has also been sharing it as well on her videos, that God is providing the signs. He's wrapping them in a bow. He's putting them on a silver platter and presenting them to us for those who have the eyes to see and to discern. Elon Musk is the second beast. His name means Baal worship. He's letting us know that he has an underworld deity spirit, a principality, a very, very evil creature lives within him, Kek, which is the name he uses, but we know who he really is. He's Satan. Because Revelation 13 says the dragon gave him the power, gave the first beast and the second beast their authority. So when Elon Musk tells us he's Kek, the frog god from 5,000 years ago who likes to drink blood, he is letting us know who he really is. So ladies and gentlemen, my prayer is that this information will awaken the church. All of us who are remnant and part of the elect need to get busy, because as these things are taking place, this is just a part of the timeline that's at the beginning. As we progress into the book of Revelation, we will start seeing some crazy sights. We will see earth changes and climate changes. We're going to see volcanic explosions. We're going to see storms, super hurricanes, super tornadoes, and a lot of destruction. That is all coming, and it's going to culminate to the end. The harvest, the rapture found in Revelation 14:14 will happen, and then after that, we will have the bowl judgments, which is recorded in Revelation 15 and 16. Those judgments have a purpose, ladies and gentlemen. Because if we fast forward to when Jesus returns, when he returns to earth, he's going to come back with the saints, with us who have been raptured. And also, there will be a few survivors. But the people who survive will be righteous people who were qualified to survive. Key point, ladies and gentlemen. They were qualified to survive, because before Jesus arrives, he's going to eliminate from the earth every human being that's evil. He's going to eliminate those who are offensive to him. He's going to eliminate those who practice lawlessness, because that's what Mark 13 tells us. It tells us he's going to send his angels, and they are going to grab all the tares throughout the world and throw them into the fire. Now, everyone has heard the parables of Jesus. If you're a Christian, you have heard the parables of Jesus when he shares the mysteries in metaphoric form. And a lot of people will listen to these parables and consider that they're just stories and limit them to poetry. But that's not what it is. The purpose of the parables is to reveal the mysteries and the plan of God and how things are going to play out. If we were to take note of the parables of when Jesus returns, he says, I'm going to send out my angels, and they're going to gather the tares. They're going to gather the goats. They're going to gather the ones who don't follow God and be thrown into outer darkness. But here's the situation, folks. Before they're thrown into the fire is hell. In order for a person to be thrown into hell, they have to be killed. They have to die. So let's look at this picture in its true form. We have the tribulation period. We have people who are enemies of God, who do not know God, who practice lawlessness, who are not Christian. They don't care about the Bible. Those people are going to be slaughtered when Jesus returns. And they're going to be slaughtered through war, through plague, and by the hand of God himself through angels. Angels are going to be involved in the slaughter. And we can find this in the book of Joel. We can find it in Isaiah. We can find it in his parables. And we don't really hear sermons about this. Think about it, folks. When Jesus returns to earth, the lawless people will not be here. There is not going to be one child molester, one rapist, one robber, one thief, one gangbanger, one pervert, one adulterer, the whole list. You know the list. Those guys will not be on earth when Jesus comes back, which means there's going to be a great slaughter. That will happen after the rapture, a great slaughter. If you want to do a word study, look up the word slaughter. That is what is coming to this earth. So in addition to knowing that Donald Trump is the guy and recognizing what time it is and recognizing that the hour is late, we must also recognize and acknowledge that the wrath of God is coming, and we need to understand what that means. It's going to be a great and terrible, sad, horrible, terrorizing day of the Lord. It's going to be days of bloodshed. The earth is going to drink down a lot of blood. Blood is going to flow into the rivers and the streams. Billions of people are going to get slaughtered because they are enemies of God. Folks, we need to include this in the narrative that we're facing right now. So this is why I am screaming from the wall that we need to know what time it is. We need to understand how to navigate the days ahead, and we need to understand what's coming. Because the church right now is celebrating that America is going to be great, while at the same time, we have Bible prophecy taking place. The days are growing shorter. We're running out of time, which will then climax with the harvest, and then after that, the slaughter by the angels. My friends, we need to be awake. We need to know these things. We need to be right with God. If you're not right with God right now, if you've been playing games, hopefully what I just said is going to raise your attention. When you go to the book of Joel, which, by the way, we're going to cover in the future, but in the book of Joel, it mentions God's angels, his sanctified ones coming from the end of heaven that are going to come down to the earth. Their job is to eliminate the evil ones, the evil people. So the angels will destroy humans and then take their souls and throw them into the fire. When we hear the parable of the tares and the wheat, Jesus said, I'll send my angels to gather up the tares and throw them in the fire. We have to break that down and understand what it's really saying. Angels are going to go out, grab the lawless ones, unalive them, and then take their souls and throw them into hell. That's what that means. Do not be in that group. This should scare everybody listening, because if you have friends that are not living for God and they're lawless, but they're your friend, they don't change. In the coming days, at some point, the trumpet's going to sound, we will be gone, and your friend will be here left awaiting their appointments with the angels of God. This is serious stuff. So that's why I'm speaking about this. That's why I'm challenging everybody to repent, to get right with God, to forsake the things that have been holding you back. I know this is serious stuff. Yes, it is. Get right with God, my friend. Be ready, because the days are growing short. The days are growing short. Folks, these are signs right before us. And it also proves that he's not your friend and that there are some diabolical plans that they have in store for all of us. You, my friend, must become acquainted with reality. If you are not on board with reality, if you're not awake, if you're sleepwalking, I want to challenge you to wake up, my friend, because it's going to get weird. As the days progress, it's going to get a lot weirder, and it's only those who have the eyes to see that are not going to be taken in deception. This is so important. So what are we to do about this? What are we to do? Well, I mentioned earlier that we have to get acquainted with the patience of the saints. We have to become acquainted with the knowledge that it's going to be okay to pick up the cross. Even though some of you guys never thought that you would do that, what better honor would there be than following our Master, our Savior, our Champion, our Lord, and our God, Jesus? All right, folks? I know this has been a long program, but we have to get up to speed. Take this information and share it with everyone. Warn your friends and your family. Folks, let us be victorious, because the people who do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. If you're a child of Jesus, if you believe in him, if he's in your heart, he has appointed you for such a time as this to be alive right now, to be his witness, to be his voice, to be his example, to stand up for him in the face of enemies, the sword, the fire, just like the 3 Hebrew children. And no matter what happens, you're not going to bow, you're not going to stay blind. You are awake. You are not one of the sleepers. All right, my friend? If you appreciate this knowledge that I'm sharing, hold our hand. I thank those of you that are continuing to do that. Please don't forget us. Continue to do that, folks, because it is helping. It's helping us to get these programs out. Allison is doing a lot on her TikTok channel, and from time to time I'll post her here. This is the battle that we are in. Your calling is to be a witness for God in these end times, to witness that he's coming, to witness that he's the Savior, to witness that we can come out from among them, and to get ready because he's coming soon. All right, my friends? So with that, stay vigilant, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.